Back from the dead.
Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to the channel. It's yours truly, Crystal. This is the Ghost Girl Diaries podcast for those of you that are brave enough to join the circle. This is a paranormal podcast today. Wow, I'm blown away by the response that I got from you guys on my last upload. I was really nervous to upload that because I wasn't really sure how everyone was going to interpret it. There's been a big part of me for a long time that's been wanting to share this stuff with you guys, and my last podcast was the most downloaded podcast of all time, so I was really shocked by that. I was going to bring Kat back in this week, but I had so many messages, DMs, I even got some emails from you guys about how life-changing this last podcast was, and I was really just blown away, very emotional from the support from you guys. And I was like, we need to do a follow-up. So Kat is coming back in, but for now, I think that, there's a few things we should chat about. I sat down last week and I was making some notes on, different experiences that I've had on the other side. And I was like, is there an organized way that I can do this? I'm kind of trying to look at this like a book, which I'd love to write a book on this, or some sort of ascending. How do you ascend? And I don't think I can. I don't think that I can come up with an A, B, C, D, E, F, G way. As a producer in my head, I do things like a very organized way, and I can't really decide where to go first. So I'm just going to jump into different topics. And this week, I want to talk about a life review because I experienced a life review on the other side. I have some other ideas for podcasts. I want to talk about how to heal and move past, a death, or especially a traumatic death like my mom. Maybe that would help someone out there, with the information that I've learned from the other side. So I have a lot of ideas and things that I want to talk about in the future, but let's start with this. So, when my mom's life ended, it ended on this planet, right? It ended on Earth. And especially the way that it ended, she was taken from me is how I really view it. It actually isn't the end. It's just her reality has ended here. She is still alive on the other side. She visits me all the time. Just saw her again the other night. I'm not getting as many visits as I did when she first crossed over. I think she was really trying to help me more in the process of her no longer being here because my reality was shattered. There's an old saying, and you guys have probably heard it too, is when you die, the hardest person or people that it's hard for is the people that are left behind. And it's very true. That's very much a fact. Talking with my mom, I've said stuff to her in dreams on the other side. I've said things like, are you as angry at the person that took your life as I am? Do you hold resentment for this person? Do you hate her? Are you mad at her? Me being very vindictive, wanting to get her justice. And I think the answers are going to shock you guys because it shocked me. So I'm like, are you mad? Are you mad that your life was cut short? It didn't end the way it was supposed to? How do you feel about it? And she's like, to put it very blunt, she doesn't care. And I know that that's going to come across extremely shocking to some people. And I'm not trying to be abrasive. I'm not trying to hurt anyone that's also experienced a loved one being murdered. But she literally doesn't care. And I know that sounds crazy. But she explains it as those types of feelings are human emotions. Anger, hate, vengeance, vindictiveness, even jealousy. Those are human emotions. I know what you're thinking. You're like, wait a second, like your mom was murdered by this person. You mean she's not mad? She's not wanting to like get justice? No. I know. And it took a long time for me to understand this concept and accept it. And I'm like, how, I even was shocked in my dream when I'm talking to her. I'm like, I don't understand. Why are you not mad? Like, I wish that I could hold this woman accountable. Like, I spent all this money trying to, take her to jail and put her in prison. And she's probably up there doing it now to other people. And how are you like not affected by this? And she's like, that is no longer my reality. She was like, my incarnation is done. My incarnation is complete. And yes, this woman will be held accountable for what she's done, but it is not my job to hold her accountable. And my mom looked at me and said, it's also not your job to hold her accountable. My mom was like, you did not incarnate to hold her accountable for what she did to me. And once again, I know I seem calm talking about it now, but at the time when she was saying this to me, I couldn't believe she was saying this. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. And you look at other people, for example, that are on Earth that have had loved ones die from traumatic things. And they do what I did. They go through the court system, the justice system. They sue people. They try to hold people accountable. They try to get people to go to prison for things that they've done. And they've dedicated their life to changing the law of, whatever that may be. And I was stunned because I was like, I don't understand. Like, I was going to dedicate everything to this. I was going to try to go change the laws in Nevada for healthcare workers and responders. Like, I was going to do so much. And my mom was like, that's really not your job. And she was like, if you do this, you're wasting your time, and your spirit team will put up as many blocks as they can to stop it from happening, because that is not why you incarnated. And it's weird because when you're talking to like my parents or anyone that's crossed over on the other side, our spirit guides, our spirit team, that's how they communicate to you. They communicate very much direct to the point. They're not going to sugarcoat it. They're not going to say something just to make you feel better, like how humans do. And it can sometimes come across abrasive. It can come across, there's even footage I've watched of Dolores Cannon that I mentioned in my last stream. And I've seen comments of people that are like, God, like, I don't like this lady. She sounds like she's like, dismissing your heartache, dismissing your pain. Like, you just need to heal through it. There was a video that Dolores Cannon did. I'm trying to think what she said exactly. She said something like, there are no bad experiences and there are no good experiences. There's just learning. Like, everything that you go through is not good nor bad. It's just to learn. And that is the perspective from the other side. And a lot of people in the comments were like, oh, like, I was abused as a child. I was, SA'd as a child. Like, I was violently, beat by my parents or whatever. How dismissive to say, like, that's not a bad experience. That's not what she's saying. The way Dolores Cannon speaks is the same way your spirit team would communicate to you. So although she has gotten all this information from doing past life regression, and it's not like psychic intuitive downloads or like me having these like prophetic dreams communicating with the other side, she is just speaking the exact way she probably heard these people when they were in a trance communicating through their guides. And that's what your guides would say. Like, the way she speaks is the way your guides would speak to you. And I know that it sounds a little bit dismissive to say, like, wait, I was like abused as a child, whether it was physical, mental, whatever. Like, how can you say that wasn't a bad experience? No, it was a bad experience. It was a bad human experience. But when you shed your body and you move on to the other side and you go home and you like dismiss this vessel, you will look back and say, it was just an experience. And that's not to be dismissive at all. You could even look at my case perspective, which is my mother was murdered. right? And I was traumatized. I'm still traumatized. Like, I will never be the same. I'm never going to be okay. There's a huge hole in my heart that's never going to go away. However, I got to view it the way my mom views it. She doesn't hold anger, resentment towards the woman that killed her. Of course, she wishes that her life wouldn't have ended the way it did. It wasn't supposed to end when it did. However, she went home because her mission was complete. Everyone that incarnates has a mission to complete. Now, some missions are small and some missions are large, right? Like, we're not all going to have the same mission. I mean, for example, I have a lot of friends in this lifetime who say stuff like, I have only ever wanted to be a mom. And that's what they did. They have a family and they have the white picket fence and they have the kids. And, you know, some of them work from home. Some of them have married rich. And I know that some of you would look at these people and be like, oh, I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, why don't you do something more with your life? Because that was their life mission. That they've literally embodied and encompassed exactly what they were meant to do. Then you have people that are like high-profile celebrities. Like, I'm talking The Rock, Tom Cruise, like really high-profile celebrities. They had a specific mission and purpose. You even look at like lower celebrities that aren't as big. Like, you look at some, like, haven't you ever seen some actors and they are on the big screen? You're like, wow, this person is so good. They've been acting for so long, but they're not that big. Their mission was not to be Beyonce. You know what I mean? Like, there's just different levels of incarnation. It's not all meant to be the same. Whatever your mission is supposed to be, you will not go home until you complete it. So let's even look at my mom for an example. Her mission was to be a mom. Her mission was to incarnate. She was here to also break some ancestral traumatic bonds that are from my side of indigenous culture, which she did. She was here to prove herself to be a extremely strong woman, independent female, that was never with a man, that raised a child 100% alone. And I think she did a really good job. And although her mission was cut short, she was meant to be around longer. She went home because she did her job. Her incarnation was based around exactly what she was supposed to do. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Some missions are harder than others. Like, look at, I have a really good friend that I've known since literally my whole life, like since we were 5 or 6 years old, okay? And she was also raised by a single mom. But generally speaking, she's had a really easy life. Generally speaking, she ended up marrying this really, really wealthy man. They ended up getting a divorce. She ended up getting millions of dollars in the settlement. She remarried, went on to have kids. She travels all around the United States. Doesn't work because she's inherited all this money. And I mean, I love her to death, but she's a very easy life. So if you've ever wondered about that, that's something that I found out through Dolores Cannon, who explains that sometimes you'll incarnate on what's called a resting life, which means you just previously had a really horrible life. Like, example, you died from war or something like that. Or you're about to incarnate into a really hard life. Your next life's going to be hard. So that's why you can't judge other people. Why has this person got such an easy, like, perfect life from the outside? I want that, and instead I'm sitting here struggling. Perfect example is even for me. Like, I'm sitting here trying to get Ghost Girl Diaries, the series, signed for years. I can't seem to get it signed for some reason. And it's taken all these years of negotiation, lots of doors slammed in my face, me having to take on this, feminism perspective in paranormal. I can't seem to catch a break. Although it sounds like it's really, really hard, that was part of my incarnation. Like, I chose this path. And with that also, if anyone's out there having a similar story, not necessarily being a filmmaker in paranormal, but there's going to be a point that you get, and this is something that my guides told me on the other side, there's a point you're going to get, which is where I'm at, where I have done in my mind everything I can do. I've negotiated with every single network out there. I've won film festivals. I've proven myself as a filmmaker. And at some point, you have to release it and allow the universe to take over and say, I have done everything in my power. I built a YouTube channel with millions of views. I'm still doing a podcast. I'm doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And now I'm asking for help. But that also is the process of like manifestation and law of assumption. You can't just assume it to come to you without doing the work, right? You have to put in the work. You have to prove yourself worthy. It's sort of like creating permission slips for yourself over and over again. Like, this is what I want to create. This is what I want to manifest. I'm giving myself permission to manifest this. And I'm also sort of proving to the universe that this is really, truly what I want. You can't just say, universe, I want a pet elephant, and not assume that you're going to have to figure out how to run and own a zoo, right? You can't own a pet elephant in your house. How are you going to make that happen? How are you going to manifest that? So although manifestation does work, the law of attraction and assumption does work, you still have to put the work in behind it. You can't just say it and expect a Lamborghini to show up at your door when you have $5 in your bank account, right? So kind of going back to, this all ties in to your life purpose, right? Like, we all have a life purpose. We all have reasons that we incarnated. So, going back to my mom saying, like, she's on the other side, and I'm like, I'm so depressed. I'm depressed for a few reasons last year. Obviously, the death of my mom was so unexpected. My dad dies after. And then I've been having so much communication experience the other side, where I'm literally like out of my body every single night for hours. Every day that I woke back up in my body, I was so sad. I was so sad. I don't like this planet. It's heavy. It's dark. It's depressing. There's dark people here. There's dark energy here. There's war. There's crime. There's hate. There's murder. Like, after I go home and I see how beautiful it is and I feel the energy and remembering myself, why would I want to come back here, right? And so my guides kind of got sick of this arguing, and I'm telling them I don't think I can come back to Earth, because the burden and the heaviness of the emotion experiencing her murder is so heavy. How am I going to heal through that? I don't know how I'm going to ever move past this. And it would be a lot easier to essentially hit the eject button, right? And just say, I'm done. I messed up somewhere. I want to come back and do it all over again. So one reason that didn't happen is that just because you eject out of this body doesn't mean you get out of the soul contract. They explained that to me on the other side. Like, okay, if you're tired and worn out, you can come home. But understand, you're going to have to go back and do it all over again. And I was like, oh my God, now I've made it so far. Like, you can't break a contract once you come in here. That's for adults. It's a little bit different for kids, which I think that needs to be like a different podcast. If a child or an underage child unalives themselves, it's just different. Usually they are extremely damaged, and they won't have to fulfill that contract, or they'll have to go home and heal. Like, there's a lot of different things that go into that. It's usually from like some sort of deep wounded childhood trauma. So it's not quite the same. But when it comes to adults, like, you're still going to have to come back and relive that contract. And that was the main reason why I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't. How do I heal through this? I don't know. And my guides kept saying, your mom's murder and your mom's death, although yes, it's traumatic and unexpected and sudden, you have to understand that it's only a very little tiny part of your life. And I was like, are you kidding me? No, it's not. You know what I mean? Like, that's a huge part of my life. Like, my mom is my best friend. It's my world. Like, I'm destroyed. I am destroyed. And they said, okay, so like, before you make the decision to like hit the eject button, let's make you and allow you to have a life review. Now, it's interesting because a life review normally it doesn't take place. It's not something you're typically granted while you're alive, right? This was me arguing with my spirit team every night. And by the way, I have a very large spirit team, and I learned that the larger your spirit team, the larger your life mission is. Also, like, if you're a starseed, which not everyone is a starseed, you may not resonate with that. if you're a starseed like I am, you're going to have a lot more difficult life and a difficult mission when you incarnate here, because you're such an old soul that you can handle it. You can absolutely handle it. So a life review isn't something that you're typically granted while you're alive. I was granted it because they thought that I was going to end my incarnation, essentially. And they were concerned with the outcome. So they basically said, let's let you have a life review of what you've done so far. And then you can make the decision on how it makes you feel when it's over. So the life review it takes place in this beautiful, it's so weird because on the other side, colors are even more vivid. They're different. There's even more colors than you can imagine in the rainbow here. Like, I just wish I could explain it. I walked into this huge, like, domed sort of room, I guess. I mean, it's massive. I'm talking like, what could I compare it to on this planet? Archdiocese sort of stuff. Italian, Italy, Greece, Greek god sort of stuff. Like very big columns, huge, massive stonework, crystals everywhere. There were actually, one of the most vivid things I remember walking into this domed area is crystal curtains. So there's like moonstone curtains and amethyst curtains and rose quartz curtain. I mean, like literally pieces of rose quartz, like somehow sewn together to make these beautiful curtains. And when the like light shines in from that sun or wherever they are, it's perfect. It's perfect. And you kind of go into this huge room, and once again, very much like Colosseum style is really the only way I can explain it. White, feels very like pure energy. And I was standing in this room alone, and all of a sudden, I don't really know how to explain it. There's like, it's not a TV. There's not like a television. Like, I know that we want to try to make sense of what I'm saying with our human mind, but like, I can't explain it that way. And all of a sudden, my life started playing. A life review is basically the life you just lived. Now, if I were to cross over, this is what I would have been watching, right? So it can go as fast or as slow as you want it to. You can stop it, you can pause it, you can replay it. Although it's strange because the only way to explain it is through your mind. You're not like holding a remote. Once again, it's not in a human sense. So I'm watching, my childhood, which I feel like I had a very lovely childhood. My dad was involved till I was about 8. So, I got to watch this unfold, and all of a sudden I have all these, weird memories of things that I've sort of abandoned and neglected, things that I loved to do as a kid. Just really, weird memories of nostalgia, I guess you could say. And going into like, my youth and, my preteen, teenage stage, which I became an angsty sort of teenager when I had a friend commit suicide. And it was interesting watching myself because I'm like, oh, that's where you see like the change happen. I kind of just went from this like really girl, like I loved tulle and dresses as a kid, and which hasn't changed much. It just got darker. And then all of a sudden it got dark out of like 7th, 8th grade. I totally changed and did like a 180. And I'm watching all of these things, my youth play out, my high school boyfriend, and it's weird because you're getting these memories, and not only the memories, but the emotions back. So I'm like remembering what it was like for that first love. And I was with him for like 4 years, and going into adulthood. And like, I even got to watch when my ghost hunting started unfolding when I was a teenager, and I was going to graveyards and breaking into places I shouldn't have been in, and, carrying on getting a boyfriend that was a guitarist, and I dated a drummer, and I got back all those emotions and feelings. And it's weird because even in those emotions, you get to experience what the other person was feeling as you're watching your life review. So I got to feel this sense of wholeness where even when I was in these relationships with these other people, I got to feel their emotions and energy towards me and how much they loved me back. And I even got into my bad relationships. I had a couple of really bad relationships. I talk about one of them in my book. I think the title was like Crawling Out of Hell or Crawling Up from Hell. And I actually remembered this person and I having a soul contract. And I don't really need to hate him anymore. because we were meant to have this tumultuous relationship to learn from each other. It was once again all going back to the learning experiences like I talked about in the beginning of the podcast. So once again, when you're doing the life review, I'm realizing like all of the bad experiences I had, they actually weren't bad. They were learning experiences. And I know that sounds crazy from a traumatic perspective, but I even started watching like Paranormal Challenge and Travel Channel and moving on. And I'm going to Bobby Mackey's. I'm literally watching this whole life review. And I'm like, whoa, like I've done so much, and I didn't really, like, I've struggled with, what's the syndrome where you don't think you're good enough? I've struggled with that. I've always thought I'm not good enough. I could have done more. I could have done something differently. I could have done something better. But as I'm watching this life review, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have that anymore. Like, I didn't realize, like, I've made films, I've made documentaries, I've won awards, like I've traveled the world. I know that I haven't reached the ultimate goal that I want, but wow, I've done a lot. Like I didn't realize how much, now that I'm watching myself, what I've accomplished. And I get to my mom's murder, which is, the end, right? Which is what has just recently happened, and they were right. It was this big. It was this big. And it was weird because I came out of the life review thinking like, nope, like that was what got me, was just, my mom. So my guides go with me into this room. My mom's there also. This is part of the same night that I was having this dream. And my mom was like, she looked at me and she's like, how do you feel? And I was like, I felt like I was watching a movie. I felt like I was watching my movie of, I am the actor, I'm the main actor, I'm the director, I'm the producer. I've created that life, but I felt like the movie ended short. I felt like the movie wasn't done. Like it was about to get really good. Like my movie was about to get really good, and then it ended abruptly. And my mom, I'm gonna cry. I'm sorry. When I think about the stuff that she tells me, she said, just because my incarnation ended doesn't mean that yours is over, is what she said. And she said, I'm sorry it happened. I'm not as far as you think. I'm not as far away as you think. And she goes, but your story hasn't been written yet. Your story isn't done. And she said, I really don't want you to end your incarnation right now. And she goes, I know that going back is going to mean hard work. She goes, going back is going to mean, before you can move on with paranormal and getting signed and production and whatever else, you're going to have to heal through my death. And she was like, there's no right or wrong way to heal through this. You're just going to have to feel it out, which is very typical shadow work. And she goes, but the sooner you start on the shadow work, the faster you're going to be able to move on to the next chapter of your life. And she goes, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Sorry, guys. She goes, I know it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. She goes, but I don't want you to end your incarnation because mine ended. She goes, I completed my mission. And she repeated it all over again. She said, my mission wasn't supposed to end that way, but it did. And I completed my mission. And basically what my guides started to say to me was this, and I'm telling you all of this because I want you to apply it to your own life, right? Like, I'm using myself as an example, but I want you to apply it to your own life. My guides said, you incarnate with your soul family, right? People that mean a lot to you. That can even mean people that you haven't met yet, right? For my case, one of my biggest soul family members was my mom, right? We've incarnated many, many, many times together, which would probably explain to you, any of you listening, if you have a mother or a father or a brother or sister or child that's passed on, you've probably had a very long history with them in many soul contracts, okay? But we incarnate on this planet specifically together because it is such a hard planet, right? And by the way, soul contracts can be friends too. You know, like it doesn't have to be, your soul family doesn't have to be blood. But my guides were like, a lot of human experiences, you'll lose a loved one in a traumatic way, and part of the learning process is healing out of that trauma. And once again, I'm not saying I'm ever going to be the same again. I'm not saying I'm ever going to be perfect. I'm not saying I'm okay with the way she died, because I'm not. However, after watching my life review and experiencing that, if I would have ended my incarnation and gone home, the only feeling that I had was regret. I wasn't sad. I wasn't depressed. And to be honest, if I ended my incarnation, it wasn't going to make me feel better. Although I'm still in mourning about my mom. I regretted that I had not lived that mission completely. I had not lived out that soul contract the way that I had planned to. My movie ended early. I didn't get to see the best part of it yet. The best is yet to come. It didn't finish. I didn't finish my movie because I ended my incarnation early. And I realized from my mom talking to me, speaking to me, that the best thing that I could do in her memory and for her, if that was what I chose, was to go and continue living my life to the fullest. Of course, never being the same, always having a hole in your heart. You know the feeling. But my mission is not her mission. And me dwelling on it and feeling like I want to die and crossing over was not going to solve the way I was feeling. Because once again, once you cross over and go to the other side, all those human emotions are gone. The sadness, the depression, the misery, the hatred, the revenge, the V for Vendetta literally is how I felt against this nurse, right? None of that stuff was going to matter when I crossed over. So now I have to come back because I didn't want my movie to end early, and I have to figure out how to start healing from this and remember who I am and who I want to be and what my mission was. So it was really interesting because when I had this life review, not only did I have all these epiphanies that I've told you about, I also realized how much I had neglected certain parts of my life. Because I looked back and realized when I watched this life review, for the last 10 or 15 years, my sole life purpose has been one thing and one thing only, which is forcing Ghost Girl Diaries to get signed. I've been solely focused on that, working in production, working for other people as a producer, working my ass off, trying to get it signed, getting in all these contracts, negotiations. And in the meantime, I had neglected other parts of myself that I incarnated with for a purpose as well. And those parts are things like my animals. Just stopping to smell the roses, right? There were times my dogs would make a mess and I'd get mad and be like, oh my God, guys make such big messes. Like, but you're never going to have that same moment again. Your dogs are not going to live with you forever. So when they make those messes, laugh and giggle and sit down with them and lay on the floor and be frustrated, but love them, because you're never going to get this moment back again. This moment will pass someday. My fashion and my makeup and my hair, like I went to school for cosmetology. Like that was the first passion I ever had. And I watched it play out in my life review, and I've totally like stopped doing it. I mean, like I was in fashion and stuff, but I wasn't utilizing it in a way that I should have been. Like I incarnated because even on the other side, I'm obsessed with makeup and fashion and goddess energy, right? Why am I not doing that here? That was the first thing I knew I needed to change, which was about May, June of last year. My makeup channel started to really pick up, and I immediately started getting fashion and makeup deals, because that is all. And that's another thing I want to teach you guys is when you're doing your life's purpose, your life's mission, and it doesn't have to just be one thing. Like for me, it's, yes, paranormal. I'm a filmmaker, absolutely. Makeup, fashion, hair, obviously, it's just always been who I am. When you are sort of running on all cylinders with what you're supposed to be doing, like your true soul purpose, whatever that is. And it can be as simple as just being a mom. That is when you're going to get the most abundance come into your life. When you are doing exactly what you were supposed to do, that's when all of the pieces sort of just start falling into place, which really happened for me too. Like, I had done a mini Creeps and Cosmetics episode on my TikTok page about JonBenet Ramsey, and that was how the producers of JonBenet Ramsey found me. And I was pulled in to do that documentary. And then I was doing, makeup and fashion inspired by Chris Motionless and Motionless in White. And Chris Motionless found my page and he recruited me for a metal music video, because music's always also been a part of my life, right? I was just a singer. I wanted to be a singer. So that's my point, is when you start living and manipulate the energy around you to your true self, whatever that is when the floodgates open. The floodgates open. And I know some people are going to message me like, oh, I'm too old to do this. I'm too old to do that. That is you putting up an energetic block in your own head. So when you cross over someday and you watch your life review, you're going to say, oh my God, why did I put I stopped myself. This is nobody else's fault. I did it to myself. I made that decision because society says you're too old, because society says so, whatever. So I would move those blocks out of the way immediately. Remember when I was going to cross over, the only emotion I had was regret. So ask yourself today, what is something I've been wanting to do, or I started, or I wanted to start that business or whatever, and I keep stopping myself from having it? Like, it's that saying of like, I don't want to be, 90 on my deathbed and regret that I didn't become a paranormal producer and do what I needed to do, to get where I should have been today. And it's true. And I think that when you get older and you start to, I think that when you're in your 80s, 90s, 100s, you slowly start the transition to crossover. And that's when you do understand those feelings of regret, because you're like, damn, life was actually short and I could utilize my time a lot differently. And instead, I was so caught up in the 3D world of negativity and complaints and depression that I didn't fulfill my soul's journey. And oftentimes that's how you also get caught up in the wheel of karma. And you're going to have to incarnate again because you didn't fulfill your soul purpose. I don't know what that is. What do you love to do? Whatever it is that you love to do and you've always wanted to do your whole life. You don't have to be famous, right? You can maybe start a business, whatever that is will bring you the most abundance, because your guides are really the ones helping you. You may not see them, you may not feel them, you may not experience them the way I do, but I'm telling you that they are watching you. And if you start living your most authentic life, they will start helping you open so many doors. It's not even funny. So I know that you're going to say like, wow, how did you go from like, being depressed and suicidal to like where you're at now? I want to do a separate podcast on that, but I'm not ready for that because it's going to be kind of a heavy one, which is essentially like how you come out of those ideologies after experiencing such traumatic loss, like with my mom. So I don't really want to get too deep into that today, but I will say this. Billy Bob Thornton, there was a quote that he said. He talked about his brother died in like the 80s, and he died unexpectedly. And he said it changed his life. He said he was never the same person after that. And he said on any given day, he is 50% happy and 50% sad. Ever since his brother's death, he's always 50% happy, 50% sad on any given day. And for me, I feel like that's the same. I hate when people say to me stuff like, time heals wounds, you're going to get better with time. Not if you've understood what it's like to experience a traumatic death the way I did a murder. It's life-altering, it's life-changing. So it's weird. I guess the only way I can say this is this. I've done so much healing and inner work. I'm so connected to the other side now that I understand that I see life through a different lens. I see life through a very different lens. I don't get caught up in the wheel of karma that's on this planet Earth. I don't get caught up on the 3D issues and the drama. Like, for example, there was a bunch of drama going on the other day on Twitter with Motionless in White fans, and everyone's talking smack, and I don't even know what was going on. And I was like, you guys are really caught up in the 3D world. And like, you're not going to ever ascend if you don't get out of that like drama-y, gossipy sort of version of yourself. Another thing is, I wish I could give this as a gift to everybody. When my mom died, and it was so dark and so traumatic, right? Like, for someone to be murdered like that. All of a sudden I realized that there was nothing that anyone on this planet could ever do that would hurt me. Ever. That woman hurt me worse than you could call me every name in the book to my face. You could talk smack. You could make up rumors about me. You could do whatever you want. And let me tell you, I have the thickest alligator skin now after what she did to me, that there is nothing anyone can do that will ever hurt my feelings. Like, I even look at comments when, of course I'm on social media, I'm on YouTube. People are going to talk smack, right? Oh, I hate your hair. I hate your outfit. You're so ugly. You're so this. Just talking smack. Oh, you overline your lips. Like, just wanting to like start trouble. And I don't even get sad or depressed at those comments anymore. I look at those people in two ways. One, with compassion, because really that's how they're internally feeling. And they're taking the time to literally comment and talk smack on my page. So that's how they're feeling on the inside, and they're projecting out. And two, that is how chained they are to the 3D world. Our society has made people feel so insecure about themselves that the only way to make them feel better is they have to talk smack to somebody else and hate on somebody else for no reason. When the easy answer would be just to walk away, right? I don't even get upset when I read those comments anymore. I'm like, oh, this poor soul, this poor lost soul. You are lost and caught up in the wheel of karma and 3D society, and I do not vibe with people like that anymore. I do not vibe with that energy at all, and I don't want people like that in my energetic field at all. That's sort of also going back to like people who have been in and out of your energy, right? I had a lot of people that I stopped talking to, stopped communicating with last year because they didn't understand the trauma that I was going through with my mom's death. And by the way, I don't want anyone to ever experience that. But there were some people that I cut off and I never want to talk to again, and family included. There were some people that didn't understand how to communicate with me. And there were other people that didn't want to understand. And they would say stuff like, oh, well, you just need to like heal and get past it. Like you'll be fine once you heal and get past it. So I really put those people at different wavelengths of energy of like, some people are so far from me now energetically that like I never want them back involved in my life. Some people I just temporarily stop talking to. If those people are meant to come back into your life, then it is a soul contract. And if not, you can release those people without any problem. You don't have to force people to be a part of your life. Understand your worth. Understand that you are one in a million, quite literally. There's nobody in existence that's like you. Nobody, not a soul. You are one in one. And I think if you were to understand that concept from the other side, you wouldn't let people put you down, because we're not meant to be replicas here. And I think that's part of the reason we incarnate on this planet and why it's so hard is we've built this society where everyone has to look like Kim Kardashian, or everyone has to look like Kylie Jenner. And that's what you're supposed to learn when you're here, is to break out of that and not be a clone, and be okay with being different, and be okay with not following the in crowd, or finding your people, or finding your soul tribe, even if that means like the goth community or whatever. You don't have to be mainstream and look exactly like everyone else to feel beautiful. You don't have to get $400,000 worth of plastic surgery, to feel like you're pretty, because that's what society says so, right? I think that's part of the incarnating here, is breaking out of that norm and understanding that it's okay to be weird, it's okay to be different, and it's okay to not be like everyone else. I am not okay with my mom's death. I'll never be the same. However, I've talked to other people that have experienced deaths in this, not necessarily from a nurse, but their family, loved one, husband was murdered, child was even murdered, which is horribly traumatic. And sometimes they've been stuck in the same cycle for 5 years. They haven't healed. They are so depressed, they just want to die. They're so depressed, they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I understand. And there's no right or wrong way to heal. But I will say that when that old saying is that they want you to live, they would want you to keep going, they would want you to live your life. No, it's actually true. Like, my mom told me, like, the best thing you could do was go back and finish your mission. I do not, like, don't die in vain of me. Like, don't come home because you're depressed because of me. Like, that's not the purpose of this. And I just feel like that was, like, a really interesting perspective, because I was not, in my human brain, I was not seeing it that way. I was saying, I'm so depressed, I don't think I can heal out of this, that I just want to hit the eject button and go home. And then when I saw my life review, I realized that would have been the worst decision I could have made, because my movie wasn't done yet. So I don't know, this is going to conclude this podcast. This is just one of the other experiences that I had. Thank you guys for being so supportive through this. I know that this is like crazy experiences I had and crazy information that I had. I do believe it's all true. I don't think these were just dreams. Like, these were happening every night. And like I said, I'd wake up the next day and I was so sad to be back in my body, because it was like, I remembered the other side, how beautiful and how perfect it is. But if we stay in a beautiful, perfect world, we incarnate to learn. And even Dolores Cannon says that. She says that Earth is just one big school. It is the hardest planet you can incarnate on. My guides even told me that. Like, there's a reason we're here. Only experienced souls incarnate here. It is hard. It is hard because we're fighting society. We're fighting, the government. We're fighting the global issues. We're fighting sadness and depression but I also think that when you incarnate here, you're such a strong soul that it is good to come here to lift the planet up, because I think that your vibes do attract I know that your vibes attract your tribe. And I think that you guys wouldn't be sitting here listening to this if you weren't on the same energetic wavelength as me. A couple of you asked for some suggestions for other people. That you've like followed Dolores Cannon, and is there some other ones? Yes, there is. There's one girl that's on TikTok, and her name is Nurse Hadley. It's Hadley. She has like 1 million followers. She just wrote a book. I ordered it. It's amazing. She is a hospice nurse, and she has seen her like patients talk about their experiences with loved ones coming in the room, understanding when they're getting ready to cross over. She actually helped healing my wound with medical professionals and trusting medical professionals. So that would be a good one. There is another one that you could look into. It might be a little bit far out there for you though. There's a guy that does channeling, and his channeled self is Bashar, Bashar. Okay. He's a little aggressive. And I feel like he would be more on a excelled plane. So if you've done shadow work and you are like, you've had a spiritual awakening of some sort, Bashar would be a good one to look up. But just understand that if you're not on that ascension path yet, that he might seem a little too aggressive for you. Bashar talks to you extremely aggressive in the way that your guides would talk to you, where I feel like Dolores Cannon's a little bit more gentle on that side. There's another guy that I follow who's really fascinating. He wrote a book. I'm trying to find his name. Here it is. It's spiritual novelist is his full name. Let me see. Spiritual_author. And he has 61,000 followers. His wife died from cancer. And he actually talks about he has prophetic dreams the same way I do, with his wife and his spirit team. And he actually does like miniature podcasts about it on his TikTok page. So spiritual_author is him. And I feel like that'd be probably the best places to sort of start. If you want more suggestions, I'll give them to you, but I think that's a good place to go. So yeah, that's where we're at today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast. Thanks for being so supportive through this. I feel so much better that I can sort of just communicate with you guys and be myself and share my experiences that I've had from the other side. Some of you were asking me if I think I'm psychic or a medium now. I don't really know. I don't know what this is. Honestly, like, I don't want to categorize myself as that, because all I'm doing is having these dreams and experiences and then reporting them back to you. You know what I mean? And by the way, I have journals and journals of last year. I'm not like seeing things. I'm not like hearing things. Like, I mean, of course, when I'm ghost hunting, I do. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I guess that's part of this journey that you're on with me, is me sharing this new, connection I have with the other side. I don't know what that means, to be honest. I just know that I'm here and I'm supposed to be sharing this with you. And I really appreciate the outpour of love and support from you. And, do good and be good, right? Is really at the end of the day, live your life to its purpose, no matter what. You don't want to go home with regret, because that was the only feeling that I had. You are in control of your story. You can change it at any day, right? Your energetic wavelength, whatever you send out to the universe, is what you're going to bring in. You have the power every day to make it a new day. You have the power in your hands to shift the energy at any given moment. What do you want to create? What if you don't like the story that you're in now? Change it. It's really not that hard. It's actually really easy. I told you I did this. I started doing fashion and makeup. Just change your narrative. You are the director, the producer, and the main actor of your own story. How are you going to change it to what you want it to be? How are you going to put it at your energetic level? And I'm telling you, immediately you're going to start seeing change if you follow the only key to actual success within your own life is doing exactly what you were meant to do. I don't know what that is. Maybe you need to do some soul searching. Thank you guys so much for being here. I don't know what the next podcast is going to be. We're just going to kind of go with the flow for now. But I appreciate you guys. Make sure you download this as a podcast. It'll be on Spotify, Apple, and all major streaming. Once again, thank you. My last podcast was crazy. It was the most successful downloads we've had in one 24-hour period. I was shocked. So yeah, make sure you guys subscribe to the podcast, follow us on YouTube. And as always, I will catch you guys next time. Bye guys. We're back from dead. Back from the dead.